Have you ever held an old photograph and felt it watching you back? Tonight, we drift into a story that begins with something as small and ordinary as a faded wedding portrait. Its edges yellowed, its smiles frozen in time. At first glance, it is nothing more than a family gathered for a celebration in early 1900s Pittsburgh. But look closer, and a single figure unsettles the eye, a man whose presence should have been impossible. His name was William Whitmore, a gifted young inventor whose life was said to have ended in a terrible laboratory explosion. Records declared him dead. Newspapers printed the tragedy. And yet, whispers lingered, sightings, letters, fleeting shadows at family gatherings, long after his burial. Was the explosion truly an accident? Did William die? Or did he use the chaos of fire and smoke to vanish into another life? As you settle in and let the night grow quiet, follow the trail of clues hidden in insurance papers, secret diaries, and a photograph bought for $5 at an estate sale. A photograph that holds a century-old secret waiting to be seen. It all starts with a wedding photo from 1905. At first glance, it's everything you'd expect a day of celebration, frozen in soft sepia tones. But hidden behind the smiles and lace lies a detail that would one day make even seasoned historians shiver. Dr. Sarah Mitchell first discovered the photo while sorting through a box of donations from the Carnegie Library in Pittsburgh. Her hands trembled slightly as she slid the brittle print under a magnifying glass. Among hundreds of forgotten images, this one wouldn't let her pass it by. The bride stands radiant in white lace, the groom in a crisp black suit. Friends and family gather on the stone steps of what appears to be a Methodist church, everyone perfectly still as if time itself had been persuaded to pause. Yet just behind the wedding party, partly hidden by the church's grey stonework, a lone figure lingers. The clothing fits the period, but the posture. Something about it is wrong. It's too deliberate, too familiar. Sarah leaned closer. The face was astonishingly clear for a photograph taken more than a century ago. A sharp jawline, striking eyes, features that tugged at her memory with unsettling insistence. Where had she seen this person before? And why did the recognition feel almost dangerous? Unable to shake the thought, Sarah called Professor James Hamilton, an expert in early 20th century American photography and Pittsburgh's prominent families. Minutes later, James arrived. When he bent over the magnifying glass, his brow furrowed, then tightened into an expression of quiet alarm. "The quality is remarkable for 1905, he murmured. "But that's not what's bothering me. This face, I know it." Suddenly James straightened, color draining from his cheeks. "Wait here," he said, already striding toward a cabinet of archival files. From a folder of old industrial family portraits, he pulled a formal photograph taken in 1898. "This is the Whitmore family," he explained, pointing to a young man posed confidently beside his parents. William Whitmore, son of steel magnate Robert Whitmore. Sarah held the two photographs side by side. Her breath caught. The resemblance wasn't just strong, it was absolute. But there was one impossible problem. Records at the Pittsburgh City Archives left no room for doubt. William Whitmore had died on March 15, 1903, more than 2 years before the wedding was even held. Newspapers of the time described a tragic chemical explosion in his private laboratory an accident that ended the life of a brilliant young inventor and amateur photographer. His death certificate, the coroner's report, every official document confirmed the same story. William Whitmore had been mourned and buried. And yet, in the photograph of his sister Margaret Whitmore's wedding, dated June 15, 1905, William stands in plain view. Clear, undeniable. A man 2 years in the grave, quietly present at a family celebration. How could this be? Were the records wrong, or had something far stranger taken place? Determined to know more, Sarah traced the Whitmore lineage until she located a living descendant, Jennifer Whitmore Chen, Margaret's great-granddaughter living in Philadelphia. Jennifer, a retired librarian, had carefully preserved her family's papers and albums. During a video call, she examined the emailed image with a practiced eye. "Yes," she said slowly, "that's definitely my great-grandmother's wedding. I recognize several relatives." But Sarah zoomed in on the background figure. Jennifer froze. Color drained from her face. "That's impossible," she whispered. "That's Uncle William. I've seen his face in countless old portraits, but he died long before I was born, long before this wedding. He couldn't have been there." Jennifer vanished from the screen for a moment, then returned, holding a worn family Bible and several photo albums. "There's something I need to check," she murmured, flipping through the fragile pages. "My great-grandmother kept meticulous notes, and there's one entry I've never understood." At last, she found it, a handwritten line dated June 1905. Her voice dropped to a near breathless whisper as she read aloud. "William was there, though we cannot speak of it. Some secrets must remain buried with the dead." What do you think of that single haunting sentence? Was it merely a family superstition, an eerie coincidence of look-alikes? Or could William, in some inexplicable way, have found a path back into the frame of the living, if only for the length of a camera's click? As you drift towards sleep tonight, hold that question close. Because sometimes, what we believe to be buried is never truly gone. Still awake. Then stay with me a little longer, because the deeper Dr. Sarah Mitchell went, the darker the trail became. What began as a single wedding photograph was about to unravel into a story of disappearance deception and a life carefully hidden in the shadows. In her great-grandmother's journals, Jennifer had once dismissed a handful of strange cryptic lines as nothing more than grief. But after seeing William Whitmore's unmistakable face staring back from that 1905 wedding photo, those old words now felt less like sorrow and more like warning. Fueled by new questions, Sarah turned her attention to the so-called laboratory accident of 1903. William's private lab had been located in the basement of the Grand Whitmore mansion on Fifth Avenue, long since demolished and replaced by a sleek office tower. Insurance records from the time provided chilling detail: a violent explosion, extensive chemical damage, personal effects scattered amid the wreckage. The fire chief's report described human remains found among the ruins charred beyond recognition. And yet, one small note snagged Sarah's attention like a loose thread. Positive identification, the report admitted, had been difficult. Digging through the city archives, Sarah uncovered the original coroner's file. Dr. Marcus Henley, the medical examiner, described a body so badly burned and chemically damaged that only general physical traits and a few personal belongings linked it to William Whitmore. But at the very end of the file lay a private addendum, handwritten and faint as if meant for no one's eyes. While I have no doubt a death occurred in this laboratory, I cannot make a positive identification with complete certainty. The family has requested immediate burial, which I have approved due to the traumatic condition of the remains. A quick burial. A family eager to close the coffin on questions. And a coroner quietly admitting he could not swear the body was William's. Sarah felt a cold unease settle over her. Was the tragedy of 1903 truly a fatal accident, or the perfect cover? Her research began to uncover small but persistent fractures in the official story. In the weeks after the supposed explosion, witnesses kept seeing William or someone uncannily like him around Pittsburgh. A hotel clerk remembered a guest who signed the register as W. Morrison, a man with William's height and unmistakable eyes. A train conductor recalled selling a ticket to Chicago to a passenger who looked strikingly like the dead inventor. And in Allegheny, a photographer mentioned a mysterious customer who bought expensive camera equipment just days after William's funeral. Piece by piece, a startling possibility took shape. What if William Whitmore never died at all? What if someone else had perished in that basement, allowing William to vanish behind the smoke of an explosion he himself had arranged? But why? Why would a wealthy young heir choose exile over privileged court records offered a few whispers of motive? Before his death, William had been facing a ruinous lawsuit from angry investors accusing him of fraud in a failed business venture. Rumors also swirled of a scandalous affair with a married woman, a disgrace that threatened the Whitmore name. A carefully staged death would free him from lawsuits, silence the gossip, and shield his family from public humiliation. Then came Sarah's most chilling discovery. The mysterious alias W. Morrison was not an invention. There had been a real William Morrison, a traveling photographer who died in a railway accident in Ohio just 2 days before the laboratory explosion. Newspapers reported that Morrison's body, like the lab victims, was badly damaged. His identification based only on papers found at the scene, cross-referencing the dates. Sarah realized the timing was no coincidence. William Whitmore had likely learned of Morrison's death and seized the perfect disguise. Soon after the accident, a man calling himself W. Morrison opened a bank account in Chicago, depositing a large sum of money, an amount eerily close to the withdrawals William had made from his Pittsburgh accounts in the weeks before the blast. A dead photographer's name, a vanished steel heir, and a trail of cash leading west. Sarah leaned back from the brittle documents, her mind racing. If William had indeed faked his death, how far had he gone to keep his secret? Did he ever glance back at the city that once carried his name in whispers? Or was that fleeting appearance at his sister's wedding captured in a single silent photograph, the only time the dead man allowed himself to step briefly back into the light? As you close your eyes tonight, consider this. If a man could slip so perfectly from one life into another in 1903, how many other stories hidden in old photographs and fragile records might still be waiting for someone like Sarah to notice and to wonder? Are you still with me? Then let's follow this final thread together softly as the night settles around us. Because the closer Sarah came to the end of her investigation, the clearer it became that William Whitmore's escape had been no reckless accident. It was a plan careful, calculated, and heartbreakingly human. The evidence now fit together with an almost chilling precision. William had used the tragic death of photographer William Morrison as his mask. He arranged for another body perhaps Morrison's own, to be found in the smoldering ruins of his laboratory, then quietly stepped into Morrison's identity and boarded a train to Chicago. And that haunting wedding photograph. It wasn't a ghost. It was William himself returning home in borrowed skin, standing among the family he loved and trusted to keep his secret. Sarah knew she had to share her findings with Jennifer Whitmore, and so she traveled to meet her in person, bringing every letter, every brittle document, every photograph that traced the arc of William's second life. Jennifer listened in stunned silence as the pieces fell into place. There were always whispers, she finally admitted. Stories passed down like faint echoes. My grandmother swore she saw Uncle William at her own wedding in 1923. But we always dismissed them as grief playing tricks on memory. After a long pause, Jennifer disappeared into her closet and returned carrying a locked wooden box. The box, worn smooth by generations of Whitmore hands, had been passed from mother to daughter for over a century. My great-grandmother left instructions, Jennifer said softly. It was to be opened only if someone uncovered the truth about William. Inside lay a treasure trove of carefully hidden history. Letters, photographs, and fragile documents never shown to the public. The handwriting on the first envelope trembled with familiarity. Correspondence from William Morrison, each line, revealing that the man behind the name was very much alive. The letters told of secret visits and quiet appearances. William had never truly left his family. He simply existed in the thin space between two lives. He attended weddings and funerals, always careful to remain the traveling photographer, a man who looked strangely like a lost Whitmore but could never be named. One letter from 1920 ached with longing. My dear sister Margaret, I know my presence at family gatherings causes you distress, but I cannot bear to miss these precious moments. I promise that I will never endanger the family by revealing myself to outsiders. Another diary entry from Margaret's own hand carried the weight of sorrow. William looked so happy at my wedding, but I saw the sadness in his eyes. He has sacrificed everything: his name, his inheritance, his place in society to protect our family from scandal. I pray that someday he will reclaim his true identity. The wooden box revealed more than letters. It unveiled a life William had built with quiet determination. Under the name William Morrison, he became a respected traveling photographer, his images of America's growing industrial cities appearing in national magazines. He photographed politicians, workers, and skylines, capturing history even as he hid from his own. And through it all, the Whitmore family protected him. They sent financial help when he needed. It kept him informed of family milestones and guarded his secret with unwavering loyalty. Sarah now faced a delicate choice. She held proof that William Whitmore had deceived not just his city, but government records themselves. Should she expose everything or honor the quiet pact that had endured for more than a century? After long discussions with Jennifer and other descendants, Sarah chose a path of both truth and compassion. Her academic paper focused on the phenomenon of identity fraud in early 20th century America, using William's case as an anonymous example. Family names were protected. Details that might invite intrusion were softened. The famous wedding photograph was donated to the Pennsylvania Historical Society, accompanied by a careful explanation of its hidden significance. William's remarkable career as William Morrison was documented at last, ensuring his artistry would not remain in the shadows. Jennifer and her relatives went further. In William's true name, they created a scholarship fund to support students of photography and art history. Uncle William spent his life hiding from his mistakes, Jennifer reflected, but his talent and his love for family deserve to be remembered. And so, a single photograph once tucked away in a forgotten box has become more than a curiosity. It is a testament to love that outlasts shame, to the quiet courage of those who keep another secret, and to the strange truth that sometimes the most extraordinary stories wait patiently in plain sight until someone like Sarah dares to look just a little closer. As you drift towards sleep, ask yourself, how many other faces captured in old photographs are not ghosts at all, but people who chose a second life smiling back at us across the quiet years?